businesses, the Phelps Family Properties LLC at 1374 Hillcrest Drive, containing 11.568 acres.
Yes.
Is your mic on?
Is it on?
Yeah, we're here.
All right. I do notice a small typo I made. It says 1374 Swanee Road on the slides, but it is 1374 Hillcrest Drive. This is an application for rezoning to go from RS-100 to RS-100 senior residential development. It's approximately 11.6 acre parcel. The applicant is proposing 34 detached and 32 attached single-family residential units. That's approximately 5.9 units per acre. This is a predominantly residential area built up in the 80s and 90s with a little bit of recent infill, as you can see kind of across the street. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the age restriction from 80% to 50%. No, staff does not recommend approval of this variance. They are also requesting a variance for detached lot widths from 45 to 40 feet. They are also requesting a variance for front project setback to be from 45 to 20 feet. Overall, the project is anticipated to have 1,400 to 1,800 square foot homes with 1 and 2 car garages. They are required to have a 25% open space area per the SRD requirements in the code. We believe they will meet that so long as they improve the detention pond to the rear into an amenity, and we've included that in the conditions. We also require in the code a 25-foot opaque buffer along the exterior property line. They are showing a 25-foot open space buffer at this time. So staff is recommending several conditions, just to go briefly through them. Conditions 1 through 4 are typical rezoning language for what we have: substantial conformance to the site plan, HOA requirements, covenants as far as no more than 20% of the houses being leased out, and 3 natural gas appliances within each unit. Conditions 5 through 7 pertain to landscaping and open space requirements. We are requiring that if they are going to do the 25-foot open space strip, we're going to require them to put in a appropriate level of screening so that that buffer can effectively be replanted. Condition 6, that speaks to the open space requirement as well, just going a little bit further and enhancing some of those open space areas with landscaping, benches, tables, etc. Condition 7, that is going to pertain to the proposed detention facility, turning it into an attractive amenity pond, and I believe we've been speaking with the applicant on how to implement that. Condition 8, we feel that a raised crosswalk, if warrants are met, would be appropriate at this location to better connect it to the greenway and the sidewalks on the other side of Hillcrest. Potentially that may be a lighted crosswalk system, but warrants will need to be checked for that. Condition number 9, we are requiring landscaping at the front of the development to be a little bit more enhanced than what we typically require. And then conditions 10 and 11 pertain to the architectural style of the entire property, basically giving it a level of character for each individual residence and giving it a little bit of modulation back and forth. As far as that, we just recommend the approval with the exception of the variance to reduce the age restriction from 80 to 50%.
Okay, the public hearing for the rezoning is now open. This is open, so go ahead.
Why would they request that change from 80% to 50?
So I will let the applicant speak on that, but just as a broad informational piece, the 80% is a FHA guideline that has been implemented just broadly, but the applicant can speak to that a little bit.
Okay. Now for this, we will be at the 10-minute mark, both in favor, in support, and in opposition. So that means, again, that's the total for all people speaking in favor and the total for all speaking in opposition. Would the applicant like to speak regarding the rezoning?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. My name is Shane Lanham. Address is 1550 North Brown Road, excuse me, Suite 125 in Lawrenceville. Here on behalf of the applicant requesting a rezoning of the subject property from its current RS-100 zoning classifications to the RS-100 SRD category. As staff mentioned, the subject property is approximately 11.6 acres. It's on the northwest side of Hillcrest Road, on the north side of Hillcrest Drive, on the north side of Highway 20. We are across the street from those two recent mixed-use developments that were approved in recent past. That's the Navarre mixed-use development, and I believe to the north there's the refinery development as well. So the subject property, as I mentioned, is on the north side of Hillcrest Drive and is in a lot of ways could be fairly characterized as an infill opportunity here. So there's development basically on all sides of the property, across hillside to the east and the west and to the north. On this north side of Hillcrest, we've got a variety of zoning classifications. Single-family residential is the primary character of the land use on this side of the road. We are abutted on to the east and the west by lands in RS-100. Those are single-family detached homes. To the north, there's it's a designation as MH, mobile home community to the north of us. And then, as I mentioned, to the south across Hillcrest, most of that land is zoned BG, but it's part of the downtown and central business overlays, which allows those types of mixed-use developments. So part of the theme as we've been working on this property and design and layout and trying to find the appropriate land use for the property, one of the things we kept coming against, it was discussed. We actually had a community meeting last week over at the E-Center that was, I would say, fairly well attended with some residents. And one of the topics of discussion was trying to find a balance for the property. Trying to balance and transition from what's across the street. All of the activity in downtown, I think, is part of that, center of gravity. And I would say within the, gravitational pull of that downtown area. I think residents will be able to interact with downtown by walking. I think they'll be able to walk to downtown, especially as I think we've seen recently some of these pedestrian bridge ideas and concepts being presented. So that's something that excites us as well. But to try to find a balance for the subject property to fit in with what's around us and what's across the street. And that led us to this SRD proposal, which is on the screen here. So in total, it's 66 homes, and the townhome portion, the single family attached, those are located up towards, I don't know if you can see the cursor, it doesn't look like it. Those are located up to the Hillcrest side on the southeastern side of the subject property. And we feel that that's an appropriate transition from the apartments and mixed use across the street. We step down to townhomes, and then as you move to the northwest, downhill away from Hillcrest, you transition into the single family detached homes, and then you transition as you move off of the property to the property zoned MH to the north. So would submit to the Planning Commission that the proposed development is compatible with the character of surrounding zoning classifications. Would submit to you that it's compatible with the policies of the comprehensive plan, which designate this area as within the neighborhood's future land use, and meet some of the city's goals for having a diversity of housing. And so I think that's what we tried to do here as part of that transition, bring in a diversity of housing types, which are shown here in these conceptual renderings of the homes. So here's where I'll touch on that variance that we submitted relative to the age requirements. So as part of that blending, as part of that transition, as part of trying to find something that fits, we have two product types. We have you could call it's attached housing, you could call them townhomes, But really what we're trying to go for here is master on main townhomes that are designed towards empty nesters, folks that are trying to transition, that have had a big house, have had a family, but they want a different type of home to live in now. And so those master down townhomes we think are appropriate use of that front pod on the property. And so the idea is to limit we're asking to reduce the minimum senior component from 80% to 50% just on those townhomes at the front. And the idea is to have a little bit more of a blended community with some families, with some smaller families in those units, just based on a variety of reasons, but in part, we've heard through market research and study that there's tons of value to having a community that is all or primarily heavily, 80-90% plus senior, but there's something also to having multi-generational housing, having multiple people in different stages of life in a community. We think this is an appropriate way to provide some opportunity, half of the townhomes specifically, to be open for families. That's not saying that they would have to be families, but just that we would be allowed to do that. We think the style of this product, this master down product, is going to attract those smaller households, attract empty nesters. But the balance to the rear, the single family detached homes, those would be according to the city's standard 80% requirement in the ordinance. One of the conversations we heard from the neighbors that seemed very important to them was buffering and screening. And so one thing, the staff recommended conditions speak a lot to that. One of the staff conditions speak a lot to that, thank you. In its recommendations for that 25-foot wide open space strip, the specific 10-foot wide landscape buffer, and using the word opaque to provide actual effective screening. One thing we specifically discussed with the neighbors was some kind of fence. And so we'd be happy to add it as a condition, where I can state here in the hearing, we think where the single family detached homes are in the rear of the neighborhood, we would propose to add a 6-foot tall privacy fence at the rear lot line of those homes. So the situation you'd end up with is going from the property line and moving internal. You would have the property line, you would have that 25-foot wide open space strip, then you'd have a 6-foot tall privacy fence, and then the lot would begin moving interior. So the fence would be on the inside of that open space strip, in other words. We understand that there's been a lot of activity on this road in recent time. We understand that with the activity downtown, that's created a lot of other activity. There's kind of this ripple effect. But we think this is a great opportunity for a senior development such as this to provide the housing types that are sought after by that demographic bracket, that has a limited opportunity for family housing as well, but has opportunities for in senior housing. One of the design aspects they talk about is characteristics that would promote an active lifestyle. And so here, we try to provide amenities on site. It's limited in the shape and size, it's narrow and deep, but we did try to activate that detention pond as an on-site amenity. But we've got the Greenway just up the street, which is growing. We know that with the pedestrian bridge, there's a very easy connection to downtown. And then staff's recommended condition about a signalized pedestrian crossing. We think that's a great idea, and we'd be happy to work with staff to make that happen. So I'll conclude there. I'm happy to answer any questions. Would respectfully request your recommendation of approval of the rezoning and the variances, but would like to reserve the balance of my time for a vote.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak in support of this? Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Give me a minute.
Okay. Again, if you have not filled out a card to this point, please do so. Very good.
My name is Jenny Sheridan. I live at 55 Hillcrest Drive in the city of Sugar Hill. I've been a tax-paying voting homeowner on Hillcrest Drive for 20 years. I'm asking your help in seeking a healthy compromise between citizens and Michael Phelps, developer of 1374 Hillcrest. I request you table this issue for at least a month to allow citizens time to meet and discuss the conditions that were released last Friday in the development staff report. I have a few extra minutes I wasn't counting on, so I want to add that the signage that was placed to the letter of the law was not placed where people turning onto Hillcrest Drive who are impacted by this could see it. It was down further in front of 1374, so we only found out about it on or about July 23rd when we got the letter. I'll further add, we are not an HOA, neither is Gable Ridge Way. We are a large immigrant community, we are not organized. We need more time for something that will impact our lives for many, many years. RS-100 will adequately serve the profit desires of the developer. RS-100 SRD is an overreach that is not necessary because we already have adequate senior housing in Sugar Hill for now and in the years to come. Time constraints do not allow me to share figures, but I have those. I feel this rezoning request is based on greed, not need. The purchaser of 1374 Hillcrest stated repeatedly in a meeting last Thursday that there was a need for housing in Sugar Hill for seniors to downsize. How many seniors downsize to a $500,000 home sandwiched in a very narrow strip between two non-HOA working class neighborhoods and a trailer park? Seniors 62 and above are exempt or partially exempt from school taxes. The loss in taxes will be shifted onto working class families, which we are. There is not enough infrastructure to support seniors as required by city code. Where is the nearest grocery store they are supposed to be able to walk to? Even with sidewalks and topography, the topography is steep for walking or wheelchairs, and we certainly do not have public transit available. This proposal will shift from 3.5 structures per acre to 5 structures per acre, roughly 34 versus 66. It will destroy the last remaining hardwood habitat in our area, replaced with only a 20 or 25-foot hedge and fence, neither of which will likely protect my property from all sorts of intrusions. I believe this increased density will have a negative financial impact on my property, as the view of the hardwood forest will be gone, and in its place the backyards of 5 structures. Vibrations from the felling of trees and heavy machinery can cause structural damage to my home, further negatively impacting property value. My house was built before code and sits precipitously on a slope. I invite any of you to come and see. There must be a pre-construction environmental and structural impact completed and a guarantee of paid repairs in place for the developer at his cost. I am concerned that increased density will cause more noise and light pollution. Will there be enough first responders to include police, fire, and EMS to assist me? I am a 911 dispatcher. Increased wait times are on the rise. Finally, I am concerned about the increased traffic flow on Hillcrest Drive, which is one way in and out and has not changed in at least 20 years, though the population has grown and includes a church school which enters and exits onto Hillcrest. In closing, this rezone to RS-100 SRD with a change from, well, they've already said they're not going to accept that, but I'll just go ahead and say from 80% senior occupied to 50% senior occupied, if allowed, will end up looking a whole lot like RSD 100, but with twice as much structural density and loss of natural environment and probable negative impact to my property value. Please vote to table and or disapprove. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Do we have any others that are in opposition?
Andrew Schultz, Windswept Trade, Sugar Hill, Georgia. Good evening, y'all. Thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Seems as if we're going through the same old. We've already got these folks here that have approved or are recommending approval of this. The problem I'm having is these folks spent a lot of time doing an Envision 101. And what was said in that Envision 101? No more townhomes, no more apartments. resoundingly throughout the Sugar Hill. Residents are fed up. I'm dealing with 81 townhomes down here, right off of Highway 20, crammed and packed, bumper to bumper in there. And no one is prepared for what we've done to this city. Any deer, like the other people were saying, they're crammed into these little corridors. They don't have nowhere to go. What are we doing? Why are we trying to cram as much as we can in here? Please stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other in opposition? Thank you.
My name is Philip Stedman. I live at Forest Path Lane in Sugar Hill. The back of my property is within 10 feet of adjoining this property. And I want to speak about two quick things. The safety aspect. We've lived here 12 years. Our son lived there 8 years before that. There have been a constant flow which has now quadrupled, I don't know the numbers, of traffic on Hillcrest. The Gwinnett Police Department, who I have talked to several of them over the last year and a half, 2 years, are constantly writing speeding and stop sign tickets. Sometimes the same people twice a week that are running all three of those stop signs on that road. On top of that, they're making arrests of wanted people, etc. It's not safe. We've had enough. The second thing is things like utilities. Our water pressure is continuing to drop. You call Gwinnett County, they will tell you it's overdeveloped. Our water pressure has dropped in half the last year with all the development at the end of Hillcrest. Third thing is wildlife. All the wildlife that used to live across where the apartments and the developments are. This is the only section of woods they have left. They're in our yard constantly, looking for food and looking for a place to live. Fourthly, and I'll sit down, we have been subjected to construction noise, constant hammering, our houses filled with construction dust, delivery trucks blocking the street on Hillcrest for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Like this previous gentleman, we have had enough, and we're going to show it at the ballot box next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We have 2 minutes left.
Can I fill out paper when I'm done?
Yes, you may.
My name is Jika Sellers. I reside at 140 Dale Drive. My concern is I have an elderly mother that she does her morning walk on Hillcrest. Every day, every morning. It's not safe as it is right now. We have over 700 apartments built on Hillcrest. I don't even know the number of the townhomes. We have only one sidewalk that we can walk, one side, which is on the side of the apartments. We are just bumping into each other, dogs, cats, neighbors. We cannot cross the street because there's no sidewalk. What good is for us to walk to the green belt, whatever it is, Sugar Hill? We have to drive there and park in downtown so we can use the belt line, the green belt. It's no use for us, Hillcrest, there's no way we can walk on that sidewalk. We are bumping as it is right now. It's not safe with more townhomes, nothing is safe. It's just, we are so overcrowded, the traffic. It takes me forever to get out of my subdivision because there's so much traffic on Hillcrest. So much traffic. Leaving to go towards 20 because of the Sugar Hill Church, it used to be 10 minutes to go on 20. It takes half an hour in the morning, half an hour to get off of Hillcrest on 20. It's ridiculous. Primrose subdivision, the end of it, they're using Hillcrest to go on 20. We are so overcrowded. The bus stop, it's not safe for the children in the morning. It's not safe for them waiting for the bus stop. It's a matter of safety. We have elderly parents that live with us. They love to walk on Hillcrest. It's not safe. I am so afraid for my mother. She has a disability, hearing problem. I'm very nervous about her. Safety, it's not, I don't want a Hillcrest for myself. I don't want Sugar Hill for myself. I'm not a selfish person. I'm realistic. Somewhere Sugar Hill have to say, that's enough. Why there? Why there?
And very good, and forgive me, our time has expired, but
Thank you.
but thank you very much, I appreciate that, Jacker. Okay, we are expired with, in opposition. Do we have time left in favor? How much do we have? Support? Okay, a minute and 52 seconds. If, and those that have spoken support, if you would like to come back up. Just a moment, forgive us, we're gonna reset the time so that you get all your time here this second. We're giving you an hour. No, okay.
Please no.
All right, there you go.
No,
Minute 52 seconds, you're ready, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to touch on, I think I talked about that balance, that blend, and I think there's an opportunity to do something special on the property that fits in the area. So the property's already zoned RS-100, and by our study, we think it can accommodate now between probably 30 and 40 detached homes under the current zoning, but none of the additional requirements that staff recommended would be required. So we asked this question in the community meeting, is there a world where some of these conditions could be required? And that sort of is a trade-off. That balance is, maybe there's more units, but there's a way to balance that by community benefits. And so the staff recommends that all of the streets and infrastructure would be privately owned and maintained, so the city wouldn't have to maintain the streets in the neighborhood. We have that 25-foot open space strip with the fencing and the landscape strip. That wouldn't be required if the property were developed under standard RS-100 zoning classification, because we're adjacent to property that's effectively the same zoning classification. I think we'd have to do this anyways, but we have to put a sidewalk along Hillcrest Drive. But the pedestrian crossing, that's not a requirement under the current zoning ordinance, but that's something we would be happy to do, and that would be a community benefit. We heard it was difficult, to cross over Hillcrest, but if there was a way for us to, in the context of this SRD, provide that improvement, I think that's something that at least we think would be well received by the community and would create this safe way to cross the street and access the greenway. So I say all that just to sort of reiterate that we did take time to study the area, and try to come up with a proposal that we felt confident in, that we thought was going to be a good fit for the area, but did try to achieve that blend and that transition based on the character of the surrounding area. So thank you for your consideration.
Appreciate that. Time's up. All right. Are there any questions from the commission for the speakers or for the staff before we close the public hearing?
I have a question for council. We have an ordinance that says minimum lot sizes in the zoning district, in which the planned residential development is located may be waived by the mayor and council, provided any lot touching the exterior boundary of the development shall meet minimum frontage and minimum square footage requirements for the underlying zoning district. Does that apply to this particular rezoning? It's Article 10, Section E, I would say. Yeah, E4. It's Article 10, Section E4.
is, by the way, on 1021, 10.21. Here's the page. Thank you. That's on section, page 10.21. Well, actually, sorry, you said 4, not 4. No, that is incorrect. You're talking design criteria?
This is for the actual, it's the section that's for senior residential developments. I apologize, I printed this off of the PDF and it doesn't show,
Yeah,
it just says 10.4 here. On the actual bottom of the page.
Just 1 second.
It is specifically for us.
Yeah, the E, that's 10.3, page 10.3.
Thank you.
Well, 4 is 10.4. It's in there. You get there soon enough.
Yes, my answer is yes, that applies as rezoning is ultimately approved. SRD.
So this would be within the purview of that particular ordinance?
The ordinance that you've referenced, yes. Since this is a proposed rezoning to SRD, that provision you have cited is applicable. Should council choose to grant the rezoning.
Do we know why this particular provision is in here, that it restricts resizing if the lots touch the outside edge of the property?
I don't know the intent of the crafters, but you might try asking the planning staff if they know.
That was before our time.
Okay, so we don't know why there is a restriction on whether or not lots touch the outside edge of the property? I'm just curious because
Well, that just allows for variance if that's the case.
that's, yes.
Yeah, right.
So it allows us to waive the lot size requirements if the lots do not touch the outside edge of the rezoning.
And they do not touch. Sorry.
They do not touch.
They do not touch.
Okay. So that this particular rezoning does fit the letter of the ordinance. Does it fit the spirit of the ordinance? What was my ultimate question is, why is this specifically stating that they shall not touch the outside edge of the rezoning? What was the point of that?
I don't know that we can speak to what their intentions are. I think we can speak to that it exists.
Is it a typo question?
Yeah.
I can text them quick.
I might be able to conjecture.
Oh, very good.
Based
Yes.
on the,
Rebecca,
oh,
thank you.
based on the, just kind of the plain reading of it, it might be, a desire to kind of appropriately transition away from the adjacent, the kind of property boundary. So require the minimum by the base zoning district on the outside, but if you transition inward on the subject property, then there's an ability to reduce down on the interior of the site.
And I would concur with that, just to give you my interpretation of it, provide some flexibility, provided that the exterior lots must meet the minimum lot size.
Yeah, because then you don't have to have the issue of connecting to a different zoning because you're within your own zoning.
Right. So that's why I'm asking if this fits within this particular. I'm worried, so
Wouldn't seem to.
just to give some background, I'm worried that the surrounding properties could come after the city for adjusting these lot sizes because of this particular ordinance. It specifically states that if these lots touch the outside edge, we cannot.
It doesn't say we cannot, it just says that the mayor and council, the city could, the mayor and council.
Okay. All right.
And you can correct me on that if you, it doesn't say that the city can't do it, it just says mayor and council by fiat can.
Well, it grants the flexibility too, yes.
But it doesn't prohibit that. Right? It doesn't prohibit the opposite, it just grants flexibility.
It grants flexibility, providing that these don't touch the outside edge, correct? That's what I'm asking. These lots cannot touch the outside edge of the zone.
If you can do anything you want in a sense, if you want to, if you have recommendations, you can adjust zoning.
I'm not sure I understand your question, but the way I read this,
So it says any lot touching the exterior boundary of the development shall meet the minimum frontage and minimum square footage requirements of the underlying zoning district. That's the part I'm asking specifically about.
right?
None of these lots technically touch the outside edge of the zoning district. However, they are against the outside edge. So does that fit the spirit of this particular, because they're asking for us to adjust the lot sizes smaller. So because they're asking us to adjust the lot sizes smaller, and these lots, while technically don't touch the outside edge, they are on the outside edge. So does this prohibit us from actually agreeing to?
I don't think this prohibits us from making variances. I think we can do variances no matter what. This doesn't say you can't do variances. It just says this isn't really a variance. It's outside. I mean, you can do variances.
But they haven't had
Anything.
Oh yeah, they have.
They had asked for a variance. Yeah, they're asking for a variance. This is potentially, I don't know, without a variance. With a variance, they have to come before through this process.
Gotcha. Thank you. That clears that up. The other question I had is in relation to the circular roadway that goes around the central townhouses. I showed that roadway clips into the 25-foot space. You've asked for a variance for that down to 10 feet. Is there any sort of safety mechanisms in place should, say, someone accidentally not make that turn properly and end up in someone else's backyard? Because I do know that those go downhill from there.
Yeah, we could, work with DOT to see if they think there's specific safety concerns there. I think the relatively low speed on the inside of the development would be part of that. But I suppose, just sort of thinking out loud, if there'd be a way to maybe install some bollards or something like that, or landscaping in such a way that would, restrict a vehicle from doing that. But, that's not something that we had studied specifically. But I think there's ways to address it.
Okay, yeah, my concern is, and not to disparage any elderly people here, but sometimes they mistake brakes for gas.
So do the young ones.
That's true.
All right, let's keep on here.
Well, yes, yeah, okay.
A quick question, the difference, one of the benefits for having a SRD is it gives you the ability to have higher density, is that accurate? And so it was said, are we, when they go from 80% to 50%, I didn't see whether that was agreed to or disagreed to by the city. And if it was, then
It was recommended to deny. We haven't.
yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we put our recommendation.
Now, just note that that is not part of the recommendations though. So if you say with city recommendations, that denial is not part of that, just that clarification. Unless,
Specifically deny that variance.
yeah, those, maybe you can correct us on that. You have recommendations and then you have discussions. The discussions are not part of the recommendations. So if we pass it with, I'm not saying you will, but if we were to pass it with recommended action, that denial would not be part of that. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
So would we have to list that separately in the motion?
If you're going to include it, yes.
Yeah, because, condition 1 pertains to site plan specific, requirements, because, no. I was thinking of something completely else, my bad. Basically, yeah, if you did want to disapprove of that variance, you would need to specifically state that as an addendum to the conditions.
I'm sorry.
In the way we work
The staff recommendation I have recommends approval of a request to rezone with following conditions. Nowhere in the conditions is there a reduction from 80 to 50. Thus, I would interpret this to be that the variance is not part of staff's recommendation, and therefore, should the motion be to recommend approval subject to staff's recommended conditions, there would be no reduction from 80 to 50, is the way I interpret that.
Okay, so the recommendations are to the RS-100 SRD, not to the intentions of the contractors, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't see anything in staff's recommendation that recommends approval of their requested variance of 80 to 50.
So it
Thank you.
It stands at 80.
It stands at 80 unless we change.
I have another question about item 3 on the recommended action. It says covenants shall stipulate that no more than 20% of the total number of dwelling units are allowed to be leased at any one time. So this would add a covenant to that HOA. That's how I understand it.
And that would be a recorded, it says to be a recorded covenant on the property itself, so that's a condition that runs with the property.
Okay, and that would be something the HOA could change down the line?
No, if it's a covenant that's deed restrictions, you stuck with it.
So this isn't part of the HOA, this would be part of the actual deeded property?
That's the way I read it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice is, again, the only reason I see for really an SRD, because it's indicated that they're not necessarily wanting all of these to be seniors, is a increase in density. Aside from the increase in density, I don't see a whole lot of need for an SRD.
Well, it goes from 30 up to whatever it is now, 30
60
something to 60 something.
66, I think.
Yeah, so it doubles.
And if you note on the left side within the 20s, the number there, if you were to add that up, you have 12 lots compared to 7 lots on the adjacent property. So you're not quite, but almost double the density per property behind it. The second thing is if you've gone by there, I didn't go by the property, because even though we have the topographical map, it's always good to see it in person. This property is much higher than the properties surrounding it, so yeah, there would be a look down into the properties below. Any other comments or questions?
Just want to make a comment that I put this into the Institute for Traffic Engineers as well. It looks like it'll add about 312 trips per day up and down Hillcrest. So, something to consider.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Did you happen to put it into if it was just left under the current zoning?
I did not.
Okay, so we can keep that in mind too.
Yeah, essentially the spreadsheet that I put it into does list specifically senior detached homes and then townhomes. So I plugged in, 34.
That amount of units.
That amount of units, yeah, and that's what it spit back out at me. Now if I were to put in, I do believe it's slightly higher for non-senior detached homes, but there would be fewer of them.
Significantly.
Yeah, so,
Because as the client's already stated, they have, this is already zoned to be a 100 standard.
correct, yes.
So that's just something to bear in mind.
Mhm.
And then, of course, a lot of these stipulations don't apply in that case as well.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion? Entertain? Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ms. Sanders. We'll close public hearing at this time. Do I have entertain a motion?
I should put forward a motion to deny.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second to deny? All to deny, yes. All in favor, say aye. Now, because we're having so much fun, we'll